There is a land of wonder in the pit of man's superstition and fears, a void that sits between light and shadow, a home to creatures beyond knowledge, carried to our reality by mere imagination. This bridge was built by our ancestors and makes us ask the question, what in history? In southern Franklin County, Pennsylvania, located in Montgomery Township, is a road that runs north-south that travels from Fairview, Maryland, across the Mason-Dixon line into the outskirts of a little village of Welsh Run, Pennsylvania. The road before us here, once lined with fencing and locust trees, ran across a flat plain in the bottom of the Cumberland Valley through rich farmland. With the topography of local trees and level lands, the road and area became known as Locust Level, a unique name for a very unique place. Locust Level Road is an old road existing in 1763 and marked on the map designed to show the famous border between Maryland and Pennsylvania by Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon. It was a dirt road, or more exactly a mud road, and was that even after the Civil War. The inhabitants of the area were descendants of Welsh, German, and Irish settlers that first arrived in this area in colonial times. These inhabitants were superstitious and believed in all sorts of hocus pocus and hobgoblins. Some of these people felt that the plains of locust trees and farmlands here were bewitched by all sorts of mysterious influences. After the Civil War, an entity supposedly haunted the Locust Level Road here, a creature that terrorized travelers of this road on moonless nights, a fiend on a white horse with a missing appendage that left his shoulders vacant. This is the legend of the Headless Horseman of Locust Level Road. The origin of the horseman varies depending on who you ask. The creature that bewitched Locust Level was said to be an early German doctor who practiced his profession coupled with other mysterious methods near a place that he haunted, which is along this road somewhere. He apparently lost his head in a mysterious way, a spooky, negative, spiritual influence that lopped off the head of the shadowy doctor. Another story was of an old Indian medicine man who was a wizard among his tribe. This medicine man held powwows on the plains of Locust Level here, where he held a sway over the community and put spells over the people's minds to cause them to walk in a continuous daydream. Could this medicine man be the one that conjured up the spirit that beheaded the German doctor? We will never know. Either way, the vague beginnings of the horsemen that plagued Locust Level Road show the spookiness of the whole area. The apparition that patrolled the Locust Level Road could only be seen by human eyes between dusk and sunrise. He would only shine on the darkest of nights. The more the moon waned, the more visible the horseman becomes as he rides with gusto up and down the Locust Level Road. And moonless nights were even better. The legend states that if you traveled Locust Level Road on a dark night, the dominant spirit of the road would appear on a white horse, wearing bright white clothing that shined throughout the darkness. While on patrol along the road, people who were graced with the horseman's presence had seen him without his head entirely, or with his severed head mounted securely under his left arm, while the right arm controlled his horse's reins. Some speculated that he sometimes could not locate his head due to the lack of light, or because time did not permit him to have time to find it. Either way, he appears both with and without his head, depending on when you ran into him, I guess. While on patrol, if a traveler trespasses on the territory of the Headless Horseman, the horseman will pursue the traveler, especially if that traveler is on horseback. As the traveler whips his horse to run faster to escape the horseman, the ghostly apparition brings his pale steed to a full gallop, bearing down on his victim. As the horseman catches up to the traveler and rides side by side, the Headless Horseman, with head under arm or no head at all, leaps from his ghostly horse and lands on the pommel of his victim's saddle and travels along with his victim for some time as the terrified passerby screams at the sight of the ghost that sits in front of him. While the Headless Horseman sits on the saddle horn and rides with his victim, the ghostly horse vanishes into thin air. Once the horseman was satisfied with his gallivanting about the road on board his victim's horse, the ghostly white steed would suddenly reappear to allow the horseman to leap once again upon its back, and both would ride off into the darkness, disappearing until the Headless Horseman finds another victim. Though the Headless Horseman could only be seen in the darkest of nights, he haunted a local blacksmith shop during the day. Stetch's blacksmith shop, which sits somewhere in this area, which is close to the Locust Level schoolhouse, which is what's behind me here. And his blacksmith shop was constantly visited by the Headless Fiend. Stetch would suddenly hear the rasping of hooves and the slam of hammers on the nails in his shop as if it came from thin air. No one would be inside or outside to be making the clanging, but yet the noise went on as the Headless Horseman shoed his ghostly horse during the day at the smithy. Stetch had no way to remedy the situation, so he would leave his ghostly guest to his work and vacate his own shop to allow the demon horse to receive his new shoes. The sturdy blacksmith would walk to the schoolhouse when the horseman made his presence known, and he would warn the schoolmaster of the demonic shoeing that was occurring nearby, so he and his pupils could vacate the area. One dark night, a doctor was riding his horse up the Locust Level Road after attending to a patient on a night call. This was a behavior that could not be avoided due to the doctor's job, but most people would avoid this area and this road, especially at night, for fear of running into the Headless Horseman of Locust Level Road. As the doctor and his horse walked over the rutty road with the goal of returning back to Welsh Run, which is the direction that I am actually going right now, and finally crawl into his warm bed, suddenly the doctor found himself face to face with the horseman. As the doctor galloped his horse at full speed, the horseman caught up to the terrified doctor and leapt upon his pommel as the white horse disappeared into the night. The doctor, scared stupid, rode on with the white specter sitting in front of him for a good mile or so, as the doctor worried about being carried off into some inferno, never to return to his girl that he would leave behind him. But suddenly the ghastly horse reappeared. The horseman leapt off of the doctor's horse and back on his own horse, as the doctor and his steed sped down the road towards Welsh Run. You all know how much I enjoy bicycling. I've featured my bike several times on this channel, but tonight we're going to use it for something a little bit different. We're going ghost hunting. They say that the horseman jumps on the pommel and rides on the saddle, front of the saddle of the horseman. I ain't got no horse. That's more my girlfriend's department. So, but I do got a bicycle. So we're going to see if we can get a horseman to jump on the handlebars. Nothing yet. had a horseman jump on my handlebars yet, so I'm a little disappointed. So I'm going to head on back to where I started, and we'll see if anything happens. They say the horseman comes out at night when it's the darkest. Well, we got a few things that are at our disadvantage here. First of all, it's the 21st century. Everybody has dusk to dawn lights. Second of all, we're close to Hagerstown, Maryland, and there's a lot of light pollution around here. So, back in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, when they were seeing the horseman, it would have been a lot darker out this way. Very much so. Less houses, less people, probably more tree cover, and of course less light pollution from nearby towns and cities. So no horseman tonight. So either he vanished for good, or it's just too hard to see him in the modern times. But we tried. No horseman jumped on my handlebars tonight. So, but either way, the story is still fun and interesting, as always. As so was this uncanny story that was pumped into the minds of the people of this area surrounding the Locust Level Road during the latter part of the 19th century. Much to the detriment of the Locust Level area, which was rich with beauty and beautiful quality land here. This area was avoided because of the fear people had for the Headless Horseman that supposedly traveled here. As you hear this story, you find it very reminiscent of Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, a tale that existed at the time the horseman at Locust Level came into being. Did the Headless Horseman terrorize people traveling through Locust Level? Was it just a story? Was it pranksters? Nobody truly knows anymore. But what we do know is the story started to disappear at the beginning of the 20th century as people talked about it less, and the incidents no longer occurred. Did the horseman move on, or did the imaginations of the local people become smaller? Squire John Palmer, the original recorder of this story, may have explained the loss of the story over time the best when he said, "Minds of people are broadening. Superstition is dying out. The Dark Ages are no more. The chain that cluttered the faith-fettered brain has been broken. Men and women are standing erect, and the spell of the conjurer has been broken. The nightmare is over." One would almost wonder how anyone could be so oblivious to the truth to believe such monstrosities. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you were entertained by this story that spawned from history. If you wish to see more, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you once again, and remember, these stories are ours, and it is our duty to keep these stories alive. I will see you next time when I explore What in the History.